an airline that filed for bankruptcy twice in 9 months, and why its potential death could raise your airfare by up to 40%. Spirit Airlines is currently stuck in what bankruptcy experts call a Chapter 22, which is an unofficial term for a company that files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, emerges, and then files for Chapter 11 again. Almost no company does this. Spirit pulled it off in less than a year. What makes this story genuinely fascinating is that Spirit Airlines consistently ranks as one of the worst companies in America. They charge you for everything from carry-on bags to printed boarding passes to water. Their Yelp rating hovers around 1.4 stars out of 5. An Axios Harris poll ranked Spirit 98th out of 100 companies, with only X and the Trump Organization scoring lower. And yet economists and consumer advocates are genuinely worried about what happens if Spirit disappears, because there's this phenomenon called the Spirit effect. Academic research shows that when Spirit enters a market, average fares decrease 7 to 19% across all carriers. Even passengers who have never flown Spirit in their lives have probably saved money because Spirit exists. That raises an obvious question about how we got here. A trucking company from Michigan became America's most hated airline, nearly merged with JetBlue in a $3.8 billion deal, got blocked by the Department of Justice, filed for bankruptcy twice, and now faces potential liquidation. Let me walk you through it from the beginning. A man named Ned Homfeld founded the Clipper Trucking Company in Michigan back in 1964. And for almost 20 years, that's all it was. Everything changed in 1983 when the company entered the airline business as Charter One Airlines, a Detroit-based charter tour operator. Their specialty involved flying gamblers to Atlantic City, Las Vegas, and the Bahamas using Convair 580 turboprops, and the whole operation lacked any glamour whatsoever. Glamour wasn't the point. Transportation for people who wanted to gamble and needed a cheap way to get there was the entire business model. May 1992 brought a rebrand to Spirit Airlines when jet aircraft arrived in the form of McDonnell Douglas DC-9s. Scheduled service launched on June 1st of that year. Headquarters relocated from Michigan to Florida by 1999, eventually landing in Dania Beach. Spirit remained a small, unremarkable regional carrier through all of this. The transformation into the company we know today didn't happen until 2005, and that's when a guy named Ben Baldanza showed up. Ben Baldanza came from what people called American Airlines CEO Robert Crandall's Brat Pack, a group of executives that also included future CEOs Thomas Horton and Doug Parker. When Baldanza arrived at Spirit in January 2005, he brought a radical vision with him. His goal was transforming Spirit into an ultra-low-cost carrier, a ULCC. The concept worked simply, but ruthlessly, by stripping away everything that airlines traditionally included in ticket prices, and letting passengers pay only for what they actually wanted. Baldanza described Spirit as a bus with wings and the dollar store of the sky. Under his leadership, Spirit pioneered unbundled pricing. The base fare, which Spirit called the bear fare, would be the lowest in the market, but everything else cost extra. Carry-on bags, checked bags, seat selection, food and beverages, printed boarding passes, priority boarding, all of it came with a price tag. April 2010 marked a turning point when Spirit became the first U.S. airline to charge for carry-on bags. Industry reaction ranged from shock to outrage. Passengers were furious. The numbers worked anyway. Understanding the ULCC model requires understanding one specific statistic, which is that ancillary revenue from all those fees accounts for approximately 40 to 50% of Spirit's total revenue. That's not a bug in the system. That is the system. The cost advantage this created was massive. Spirit's cost per available seat mile ran 20% lower than Southwest and 100% lower than United. Spirit went public on the New York Stock Exchange in May 2011 under the ticker symbol SAVE. December 8, 2014 brought an all-time high stock price of success came bundled with a reputation problem, and Spirit quickly became the airline everyone loved to hate. Skytrax downgraded Spirit to a 2-star rating in 2013, making them the only U.S. carrier with that low a score. The Onion ran a headline that same year reading FAA report. Spirit Airlines is the effing worst. Incidents piled up over the years. Baldanza accidentally hit reply all on a customer complaint email in 2007, writing that we owe him nothing as far as I'm concerned, and that email went public almost immediately. A refund denial in 2012 became a national story when Spirit refused to give $197 back to Jerry Meekins, a 76-year-old terminally ill Vietnam veteran. A Facebook boycott page grew from 700 to over 40,000 supporters in response. Baldanza eventually refunded the money from his own pocket, and the company donated $5,000 to the Wounded Warrior Project. One passenger in 2018 flushed her emotional support hamster down an airport toilet after allegedly receiving wrong information about Spirit's pet policy. Another passenger in 2023 ended up urinating on the galley floor after being denied bathroom access for over 2 hours. These stories became legendary, and Spirit's customer service reputation suffered for it. Here's where the economics get interesting, though. Despite all of this, economists kept pointing to the Spirit effect. When Spirit enters a market, fares drop for everyone. Passengers who never fly Spirit still benefit from Spirit's existence because other airlines have to compete on price. Spirit's defenders had a simple argument, which was that you get what you pay for. Low prices reflect the business model. Spirit makes air travel accessible to budget-conscious travelers who might not fly at all otherwise. 2019 turned out to be Spirit's last profitable year. COVID arrived next. Everything changed after that. Pandemic losses exceeding $400 million left Spirit vulnerable by 2022. The airline industry was consolidating, and Spirit became a target. February 5, 2022 brought an announcement from Frontier Airlines about a merger with Spirit worth $6.6 billion total, which would create the largest ultra-low-cost carrier in America. JetBlue made an unsolicited all-cash offer on April 5, 2022, and that's when the bidding war started. JetBlue kept sweetening the deal until they reached $3.8 billion by July. Frontier tried to match with better terms, including a $350 million reverse termination fee, but Spirit shareholders weren't convinced. Spirit terminated the Frontier merger on July 27, 2022 after shareholders rejected it. What nobody expected was how fast things moved after that. Because the very next day, on July 28th, Spirit's board approved JetBlue's $3.8 billion offer. Spirit shareholders officially approved the JetBlue merger on October 19, 2022. Everything pointed toward a done deal. The fifth largest airline in America was about to be born. The Department of Justice stepped in and changed everything. March 7, 2023, brought an antitrust lawsuit from the Department of Justice to block the JetBlue-Spirit merger. And 7 states joined the case: California, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, and the District of Columbia. Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General Doha Meki laid out the government's argument directly. JetBlue's proposed acquisition of Spirit eliminates a disruptive low-cost option for millions of Americans, she explained. Whether they fly Spirit or not, travelers throughout the United States benefit from an independent Spirit, because where Spirit competes, other airlines, including JetBlue, are forced to compete more vigorously by lowering fares. The trial began on October 16, 2023, and lasted 17 days in Boston before Judge William G. Young, a Reagan appointee from January 16, 2024, brought a permanent block on the merger. Judge Young called the airline industry an oligopoly that has become more concentrated due to a series of mergers in the first decades of the 21st century, with a small group of firms in control of the vast majority of the market. His ruling continued by stating that if JetBlue were permitted to gobble up Spirit, at least as proposed, it would eliminate one of the airline industry's few primary competitors that provides unique innovation and price discipline. The ruling ended with a dedication. Spirit is a small airline, the judge wrote, but there are those who love it. To those dedicated customers of Spirit, this one's for you. JetBlue's new CEO, Joanna Geraghty, responded by calling it a bold and courageous plan intended to shake up the industry status quo, adding that they were right to compete with Frontier and go for an opportunity that would have supercharged their growth. The probability of getting the green light to move forward with the merger anytime soon, she admitted, was extremely low given the ruling and the Department of Justice's continued opposition. JetBlue and Spirit officially terminated the merger agreement on March 4, 2024. No airline merger had been blocked in over 40 years. Spirit's stock dropped 47% on the day of the ruling, and the company found itself alone, drowning in debt, with no rescue anywhere in sight. Ben Baldanza died on November 5, 2024 at age 62 from ALS. The architect of Spirit's business model was gone. 13 days later, the company he built filed for bankruptcy. November 6, 2024, brought a 59% stock plunge in a single day when news broke about creditor negotiations. Spirit filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection on November 18, 2024, in U.S. bankruptcy court for the Southern District of New York. The company carried over $3.1 billion in long-term debt and had lost more than 2 days later, on November 20th, the stock hit an all-time low of 0.13. The NYSE suspended trading and started delisting procedures. Spirit kept flying through all of this. Chapter 11 isn't liquidation, but reorganization, and the goal is restructuring debt to emerge as a viable company. The court confirmed Spirit's plan of reorganization on February 20th, 2025. That plan converted $79.5 million of debt into equity. Spirit emerged from bankruptcy on March 12, 2025, after just 11. CEO Ted Christie released a statement expressing pleasure at completing their streamlined restructuring and emerging in a stronger financial position to continue their transformation and investments in the guest experience. Less than a month passed before Ted Christie resigned on April 7, 2025. News broke that he had received a $3.8 million retention bonus just a week before the bankruptcy filing. Spirit returned to the NYSE American Exchange on April 29, 2025, under a new ticker symbol called FLYY. The stock opened at everything pointed towards survival for Spirit. August 12, 2025, brought a quarterly report from Spirit that included a phrase no investor wants to see. Substantial doubt about the company's ability to continue as a going concern. 17 days later, on August 29, 2025, Spirit filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy for the second time. Financial circles call this a Chapter 22. Almost no company does this. Spirit had been out of bankruptcy for just 5 months. CEO Dave Davis, who had taken over after Christie's departure, released a statement acknowledging that since emerging from their previous restructuring, which targeted exclusively reducing Spirit's funded debt and raising equity capital, it had become clear that much more work needed to be done, and many more tools were available to best position Spirit for the future. The numbers painted a brutal picture. $1.2 billion in losses for 2024 alone. Projected 2025 losses of $804 million. Daily cash burn running approximately $3.1 million in October. Spirit now operates under $47.5 million in debtor-in-possession financing from bondholders. Fleet reductions mean returning 87 of their 214 leased aircraft, a 40% cut. Route cuts hit approximately 25 to 30. December 2025 brought furloughs for approximately 1,000 pilots lost their jobs. Pilots who remained accepted temporary pay cuts and reduced retirement contributions. United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby has been the most vocal critic of Spirit's business model. "You can't have a business model that customers hate," he declared in September 2025. "You can't have a business model predicated on screw the customer." When asked why he believes Spirit will go out of business, Kirby's response was blunt: "Because I'm good at math." His prediction was that Chapter 11 will be a brief pit stop on the way to Chapter 7, and Chapter 7 means liquidation. Others disagreed with Kirby's assessment. Frontier's then CEO Barry Biffle called Kirby's view elitist and insisted the ULCC model is alive and well. JetBlue and Breeze founder David Neeleman offered a middle ground by saying there's room for a ULCC in the US, but probably not two. The bondholders weighed in as well. Citadel, one of Spirit's key creditors, released a statement in January 2026, placing blame directly on the prior administration's aggressive antitrust agenda and opposition to the Spirit-JetBlue merger. The deal would have been in the best interests of employees, passengers, and investors, according to Citadel. A real irony runs through all of this. The DOJ blocked the merger to preserve competition and protect consumers from higher fares. If Spirit liquidates, the market consolidates anyway, and there's no $3.8 billion going to shareholders. No jobs preserved, no transition plan for anyone. January 2026 finds Spirit still flying, still in bankruptcy, and still fighting to survive. The pilots' union, ALPA, published an open letter to bondholders on January 13, 2026, pleading with them to continue supporting the company. Spirit may be in Chapter 11, the letter read, but bankruptcy does not equate to collapse. This process exists to allow companies to restructure their debt, stabilize operations, and emerge stronger. The letter continued with a warning that liquidation would not be just a business outcome. Small businesses connected to travel and aviation will suffer immediate harm. The regional and national ripple effects will be real and long-lasting. Bloomberg reported in December 2025 that Spirit and Frontier have renewed merger discussions, which marks the fourth time these two companies have talked about combining. Frontier recently replaced their CEO when Barry Biffle was removed in December 2025 after 11 years and replaced by interim CEO James Dempsey. Whether that shifts negotiation dynamics remains unclear. Previous Frontier offers came back rejected as inadequate, including a $2.116 billion offer in January. Consumer advocates warned that if Spirit does disappear, fares could increase 25 to 40% on affected routes within months. Some routes may lose service entirely. Small Caribbean islands and secondary U.S. cities face the greatest risk. An airline that started as a trucking company in 1964 now sits at the edge of oblivion. 20 years flying gamblers to Atlantic City preceded a transformation into America's most aggressive ultra-low-cost carrier under a CEO who called it a bus with wings. That same airline became one of the most hated companies in America while simultaneously saving consumers hundreds of millions of dollars through the mere fact of its existence. A $3.8 billion acquisition almost saved everything. The Department of Justice blocked it in the name of protecting competition. Bankruptcy followed. Emergence followed. Bankruptcy followed again, all in less than a year. Spirit's stock went from 84.47 at its peak to 0.113 at its lowest. The company that pioneered charging for carry-on bags might not exist by the time you watch this video. The strangest part of all of this is that if Spirit dies, airfares will probably go up for everyone. The Spirit effect will disappear. The airline nobody loves but everybody needs will be gone. Whether you think Spirit's business model was innovative or predatory, whether you think the DOJ was right or wrong to block the merger, whether you've ever flown Spirit or sworn you never would, the outcome matters. An industry where the Big Four control nearly 80% of the market gets a little more consolidated every time a competitor disappears. Spirit Airlines might be a bus with wings. Sometimes you need a bus.